Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome the fuck back. Let's just dig right into it. Saul Canelo Álvarez once again shuts the mouths of haters. You know, you have a lot of haters and biased media coming out constantly attacking Canelo Álvarez, mad that he's sitting on top of the mountain, mad that he's the king at this point in boxing. And you have to be honest. You know, you can say what you will about Canelo Álvarez, whether you like him or not. At the end of the day, Canelo Álvarez does a few things. He shines the limelight on boxing. And when Canelo Álvarez announces a fight, the world stops and listens. And we have to be unbiased in our assessment of Canelo Álvarez. Canelo Álvarez constantly shuts the mouths. And a lot of people say, well, you know, we don't think that Canelo Álvarez was going to fight a good opponent. He's going to fight another bum like Rocky Fielding. First of all, Rocky Fielding was ranked in the top 10. Rocky Fielding was a world champion, and he was in a higher weight class. But that's fine if you're not satisfied with Rocky Fielding. You have Danny Jacobs, who's a world champion, the IBF world champion at 160 pounds, who's an elite level fighter. So there's no excuses for this. There's none. So, you know, you're going to have guys try to spin this and try to bash Danny Jacobs. And the narrative that you're going to hear now is going to be pumping up Jermall Charlo while breaking down Danny Jacobs. And if you hear that, you know that's all garbage, because at the end of the day, we know that Danny Jacobs is an elite level fighter, and Jermall Charlo is a guy who's never won a world title at 160 pounds, who's unproven at 160, who's nothing but a hype job, and who's exposed by Matt Korobov. So let's not play that game with that biased media. And when I talk about that biased media, we talk about Dante's Bias Nation, we're talking about bias ego, and we also talk about all these other LDBC fangirls. So you have to understand that these guys like to pump up these certain fighters because they're fanboys of these fighters. These guys don't have a legitimate and unbiased analysis. I'm coming to you unbiased and honest about the analysis between Danny Jacobs and Saul Canelo Álvarez, because I have no reason to be biased. I have no favorites and I play no favorites. When Canelo Álvarez and Triple G was reportedly in negotiations for a fight, and I reported that information, and I came out and I said, you know, I feel like this is a contract negotiation tactic to secure the fight with Danny Jacobs so they can meet reasonable terms. They can find a financial middle ground in agreement. And that's exactly what this was. It was all just a ploy so they could hammer out a deal with Danny Jacobs. This is what this was all about. This was never about Canelo legitimately wanting to fight Triple G again, because Canelo's already been there. He's done that. He's proved what he needed to prove. It's time for another fight. It's time for Canelo Álvarez to unify. And Canelo Álvarez has recently made a statement today in regards to this fight that, hey, he's looking to unify, and he has no doubt in his mind that he's going to win this fight. And I commend Canelo Álvarez on this. And the reason why is because if we judge this fight unbiased, it's a 50-50 fight. You're going to have a lot of fanboys out there saying, oh, Danny Jacobs will destroy Canelo. Or you're going to have fanboys saying that Canelo, you know, is just going to blow away Danny Jacobs. In reality, if we meet in the middle and look at how good and talented these guys are on both sides and both angles, we'll be honest in our assessment that this is a tough fight. It's a 50-50 fight. It's a pick'em fight. And if Canelo Álvarez does anything spectacular in this fight, he deserves full credit. You can't take credit away from Canelo Álvarez. You can't make up some excuse or hate or deny him anything if he wins this fight, and especially if he wins it in impressive fashion, for the simple fact that Canelo Álvarez is fighting the best. He's fighting the best at 160. He's fought the top two fighters. Well, basically, he's signing on to fight the top two fighters in the 160-pound division. Triple G was one, and Danny Jacobs is two. Both world champions, both elite level fighters, both are proven fighters. So you have to be honest and unbiased when you give your analysis of the fight and who's Canelo Álvarez is fighting. I told you guys that this was all a ploy to get the Danny Jacobs fight done. I am not going to analyze a fight or a situation the wrong way. I have to approach it unbiasedly. These fake biased media sources will come out and tell you all these things, but honestly and unbiasedly, Canelo Álvarez was only looking for the biggest and best fights. He's aiming to unify the middleweight division, and these are his words. He wants to unify the middleweight division. These are his goals. And so, similar to Triple G, Canelo Álvarez is moving on the same direction as the new champion at 160 pounds. So you have to commend him for this. You're going to see a lot of mouths shut. You're going to see a lot of guys coming with backhand compliments saying, well, Canelo Álvarez did great, but I think he should fight this guy or this guy. You're going to hear biased guys trying to pump up Jermall Charlo, and they're going to make excuses why he was a better opponent than Danny Jacobs. When you start arguing for a guy who's an unproven fighter and not a world champion, you're reaching for straws, and these guys are desperate to promote a narrative. When you see the fanboys coming out trying to diminish Danny Jacobs' accomplishments, the fact that he's an elite level fighter, a world champion, and has elite level boxing skills and power, you're going to see that these guys are trying to diminish the fight and what it means to boxing. So beware of that. Anybody who tries to diminish these two fighters, who tries to diminish this fight, because there's no better fight at 160 pounds than these two fighters right now. Period. So you have to understand that Canelo Álvarez constantly shuts mouths of the haters, and you have to understand that Canelo Álvarez fought Gennady Golovkin when everyone said that he would never fight Gennady Golovkin. They said that he would never fight Triple G, and Canelo Álvarez fought Triple G. This is proving the same thing again and again and again, that Canelo Álvarez is looking for the best fights. When did a fighter get, degraded in saying that he's bum bashing when he fights a top 10 fighter, a world champion, a higher weight class above him? But you don't hear the bum bashing stuff. You don't hear any of these things from guys like, from Errol Spence. When people talk about these type of fighters, they just give these guys props and credit because these guys are fanboys. You can't trust biased media, because at this point the biased new media are coming out here, and these guys are groupies of the PBCs. These guys are waving their pom-poms and kissing these guys' ass. Let's be honest and unbiased when we analyze this situation for what it is. Canelo Álvarez keeps shutting these guys' mouth, and the Ibfp keeps shutting these guys' mouth. You remember when we told you that Tyson Fury was going to outbox Deontay Wilder, and it came true. We told you that Canelo Álvarez was angling for a Danny Jacobs fight, and it was just a contract negotiation ploy, and it came true. But all the haters told you, though, that Canelo Álvarez is looking for an easy touch-up fight. He's looking for a David Lemieux. He's looking for weaker opponents, broken opponents, beaten opponents. And I told you that Canelo Álvarez only wants to fight the best. Once again, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.